The legendary commander's suit is the most advanced combat armor in Thessari military history. Developed over decades through integration of cutting-edge technology with biological interface systems that connect directly to wearers' neurological and physiological patterns. The suit amplifies tactical capability, enhancing strength, speed, sensory processing, decision-making speed during combat. It transforms capable warrior into tactical force operating beyond normal biological limitations. Commander Seraphina wore the suit for 8 years, led critical operations that turned the tide of the border conflict, became legendary figure whose combat achievements were enabled by perfect integration between her capabilities and the suit's enhancement systems. The combination of Seraphina's tactical genius and the commander's suit amplification, that partnership became symbol of Thessari military excellence. Then, 3 months ago, Seraphina was critically injured during operation against separatist command structure. Explosive device created traumatic injury requiring extensive medical intervention. She survived, but the neurological damage from the trauma disrupted her biological compatibility with the suit's interface systems. The suit that had been perfectly integrated with her physiology for 8 years, that integration was broken. The neural pathways that allowed seamless connection between her nervous system and the suit's enhancement systems, those pathways were damaged beyond medical ability to restore them. Seraphina recovered physically, but her connection to the commander's suit, that connection was severed permanently. The suit remains, still the most advanced combat armor in Thessari arsenal, but without compatible wearer. It's just sophisticated equipment rather than being force multiplier that made Seraphina legendary. Military command desperately needs the suit operational. New crisis developing in contested regions. Separatist forces gaining advantage. The tactical capabilities that commander's suit provides, those capabilities could turn current situation from deteriorating stalemate into advantage, allowing decisive response. But the suit won't activate. Its biological interface systems require compatible wearer, someone whose neurological patterns and physiological responses match the specific parameters that suit's integration systems recognize as valid. Thessari engineers have been attempting to activate the suit for 3 months, testing potential wearers whose biological profiles suggest possible compatibility, adjusting interface parameters trying to broaden recognition criteria, attempting to override biological requirements through technical modifications. Nothing works. The suit remains dormant. Every attempted activation produces same result. Interface systems detect incompatibility and refuse to engage enhancement functions that make the suit tactically valuable. The battlefield, not literal battlefield currently but strategic situation, has fallen silent in ways that metaphorically capture the desperation. Engineers failed. Generals panicked as crisis worsens without tactical advantage that suit could provide. Hope began to fade that legendary commander's suit would ever be operational again. Then Chen arrives at Thessari Military Research Facility. He's human engineer assigned to Technical Exchange Program. Alliance and Empire Cooperation, initiative bringing specialists from both civilizations together to share expertise and improve joint operational capabilities. David's specialty is advanced interface systems, the kind of biological-technological integration that commander's suit represents at its most sophisticated level. He's been assigned to research facility to consult on unrelated project, interface development for next-generation Alliance combat equipment. His presence at facility where commander's suit testing is occurring, that's administrative coincidence rather than intentional assignment to the suit problem. But during tour of facility, he observes testing attempt. Thessari soldier with apparently compatible biological profile attempting to activate the suit. Interface systems running diagnostic. Then inevitable result, incompatibility detection and system shutdown preventing activation. David watches the failed attempt with professional interest, not his project, not his responsibility. Just interesting technical challenge that his expertise makes him curious about. Dr. Vethros, lead specialist on Commander's suit project, notices David's attention. Engineer Chen, you're observing our testing protocols. Do you have perspective on interface compatibility challenges? Possibly, David responds, though I'd need more information about what parameters the suit systems are using for compatibility detection. What I observed during that test, the rejection occurred very early in activation sequence. That suggests fundamental biological mismatch rather than just calibration issue. Your assessment is correct, Vethros confirms. The suit's interface was designed specifically for Commander Seraphina's neurological patterns. After her injury severed that connection, we've been unable to find compatible alternative wearer. Every candidate we test, the biological mismatch triggers immediate rejection before enhancement systems even begin engaging. Have you tested human candidates? David asks. The question creates a moment of surprised silence. Then Vethros responds. Human candidates. The suit was designed for Thessari physiology. Why would we test human compatibility when biological differences between species seem likely to create even more fundamental mismatch than differences among Thessari candidates? Because sometimes biological differences create unexpected compatibility, David suggests. Interface systems designed for specific individual, those systems aren't just matching physiology. They're matching neurological processing patterns, stress response characteristics, decision-making rhythms. Those patterns aren't purely species-specific. Human with right neurological characteristics might match compatibility parameters better than Thessari, whose physiology is similar but whose neurological patterns differ from original wearer. That's theoretically possible, Vethros acknowledges. But testing human candidates when we haven't found compatible Thessari candidate, that seems like expanding search without clear justification. The justification is that you're desperate, David observes bluntly. 3 months of testing without success. Crisis worsening while legendary suit remains dormant. Testing unconventional possibilities. That's what desperation requires. Human candidate costs you 1 test cycle. If it fails like all other attempts, you've lost nothing. If it succeeds, you've solved problem that 3 months of conventional testing couldn't address. General Kethara, who's been observing testing, intervenes. Engineer Chen has point. We're approaching this search conventionally, testing Thessari candidates whose biological profiles suggest compatibility. That approach has failed completely. Testing unconventional possibility, human candidate whose neurological patterns might match despite physiological differences, that's reasonable desperation measure. Which human would you propose testing? Vethros asks David. David considers. Then, with combination of professional assessment and awareness of how presumptuous this will sound, responds, me. My neurological processing patterns are well documented through alliance interface development work. I've been tested extensively for biological-technological integration compatibility. If suit systems are matching neurological characteristics rather than just physiology, my profile might align with parameters that Commander Seraphina's integration established. You're volunteering to test whether human engineer can activate legendary Thessari commander's suit, Kethara summarizes, tone suggesting she's uncertain whether proposal is audacious or absurd. I'm volunteering to test whether suit's compatibility systems care more about neurological patterns than about species physiology, David clarifies. 1 test cycle. If systems reject me like they've rejected every Thessari candidate, you've confirmed species differences create insurmountable mismatch. If systems accept me, you've solved problem that conventional search couldn't address. Either outcome provides useful information. Vethros and Kethara exchange look. communicating without words about whether human candidate is reasonable desperation measure, or whether it's waste of testing resources pursuing implausible possibility. Then Kethara decides. We test him. Engineer Chen's logic is sound. Desperation requires unconventional attempts. If human compatibility is possible, discovering that possibility is worth one test cycle. If it's impossible, confirming impossibility allows us to eliminate that variable from future considerations. David approaches the commander's suit. The armor is imposing even in its dormant state, designed for combat effectiveness rather than ceremonial appearance. Scorch marks and impact damage from 8 years of Seraphina's operations, visible despite repair work. The suit carries history that its current inactivity makes poignant. He places his hand on the interface panel. The same activation gesture that 43 Thessari candidates performed over 3 months of failed testing. The suit systems engage, running diagnostic that every previous test ran, scanning biological parameters, analyzing neurological patterns, assessing compatibility between humans standing before it and Thessari commander who originally wore it. The diagnostic continues longer than usual, not immediate rejection. Systems processing data in ways that suggest they're finding something unexpected. Then, impossible result that makes everyone in testing facility freeze in shocked attention. The suit activates. Interface systems engaging. Enhancement functions coming online. Biological connection establishing between human nervous system and Thessari combat armor designed for someone else entirely. The legendary commander's suit, dormant for 3 months despite desperate testing, just accepted human engineer as compatible wearer. The activation produces cascading response throughout testing facility. Engineers rushing to monitor systems. Generals communicating urgently about impossible development. Dr. Vethros staring at diagnostic displays showing full interface engagement where 3 months of testing produced only rejection failures. David stands very still. The suit is responding to him. He can feel the neural connection, subtle integration between his nervous system and enhancement systems that is far more sophisticated than any interface technology he's worked with previously. The suit isn't just reading his biological signals. It's actively connecting with his neurological patterns in ways that feel simultaneously foreign and remarkably natural. The activation is stable, Vethros reports with voice barely concealing shock. Full interface engagement, enhancement systems responding to neural input, biological compatibility confirmed across all parameters. This shouldn't be possible. Human physiology and Thessari combat armor designed for specific individual. The compatibility mismatch should be insurmountable. But it's not, General Kethara states. Whatever parameters the suit uses for compatibility, Engineer Chen matches them despite being human and despite suit being designed for Commander Seraphina. The match exists regardless of whether we understand why. Commander Saraphina herself enters testing facility. She's been monitoring attempts to activate her former suit, but hasn't been directly present during testing. Watching others fail to connect with armor that was perfectly integrated with her for 8 years creates painful reminder of what neurological damage cost her. But impossible news that human engineer successfully activated the suit. That brings her directly to testing facility to witness what 3 months of Thessari candidates couldn't achieve. She approaches David, looks at him wearing, or more accurately being interfaced with, the suit that was uniquely hers for 8 years. Her expression shows complex mixture of emotions that even Thessari chromatic patterns don't fully capture. Recognition, loss, profound confusion about how human is accomplishing connection she can no longer achieve. How? She asks simply, how are you compatible with suit designed specifically for my neurological patterns? Human and Thessari biology. The differences should prevent integration that even similar Thessari can't establish. I don't know, David admits honestly. The compatibility exists. I can feel the neural connection. But I can't explain why suit systems recognize my patterns as compatible when they've rejected everyone else you tested. Dr. Vethros, Seraphina says without taking her eyes off David, what do diagnostics reveal about compatibility basis? What parameters are matching that allow human integration despite physiological differences? Vethros examines data carefully. The compatibility appears neurological rather than physiological. The suit systems aren't matching engineer Chen's biology to yours. Thessari and human biology are too different for direct matching. Instead, systems are matching neurological processing patterns, decision-making rhythms, stress response characteristics, cognitive pattern recognition. Those neurological features, apparently engineer Chen's patterns align with yours closely enough that suit systems recognize compatible integration despite physiological differences. My neurological patterns match hers, David processes. Not our biology, our neurology. How we think rather than how we're physically constructed. That's what data suggests, Vethros confirms. The suit was designed to integrate with Commander Seraphina's unique combination of tactical thinking, stress management, and combat decision-making patterns. Engineer Chen apparently processes information and responds to situations using similar enough neurological patterns that suit systems recognize compatible match despite species differences. This creates extraordinary situation, General Kethara observes. We desperately need Commander's suit operational. Engineer Chen has activated it successfully. But he's human engineer with no combat training or tactical experience. The suit amplifies capability, but it requires capable wearer to amplify. Engineer Chen possesses compatibility that 3 months of testing couldn't find among Thessari candidates. But he doesn't possess combat capability that makes suit activation strategically valuable. So we have compatible wearer who can't use the suit effectively, Seraphina summarizes, which is improvement over having no compatible wearer at all. But it's not solution to crisis requiring suit's tactical capabilities. David speaks carefully. I'm compatible with suit's interface systems. I'm not claiming to be capable of using enhanced combat abilities effectively. General Kethara is correct that I lack training and experience. But the compatibility exists. The question is whether someone without combat background can learn to utilize enhancement systems effectively, or whether suit's value requires experienced warrior who happens to also be compatible. Learning to use Commander's suit at combat effective level requires months of training under ideal circumstances, Kethara responds. Current crisis doesn't provide months. It provides weeks at most before strategic situation deteriorates beyond point where even enhanced capabilities can address it. Training Engineer Chen to combat proficiency within available time frame. That's unrealistic expectation. Unless, Seraphina suggests, we approach this differently. Engineer Chen is compatible with suit. I understand combat operations and tactical employment of suit's capabilities better than anyone. 8 years of experience using enhancement systems in actual combat. What if rather than training Engineer Chen to operate independently, we create command structure where I provide tactical direction and he provides compatible interface? Combined approach utilizing both his compatibility and my experience. That's unconventional command structure, Kethara notes. Combat operations typically require autonomous decision-making. Paired approach where one person provides tactical decisions and another provides physical execution. That creates communication delays and coordination complications. But it leverages what we actually have available, Seraphina argues. Compatible wearer without combat experience. Experienced tactical commander without compatible interface. Conventional approach, training Engineer Chen to independent combat proficiency. That's impossible within available time frame. Unconventional approach, paired command utilizing both our capabilities. That's actually achievable if we're willing to accept coordination complications. Over following days, Seraphina and David develop working relationship built around paired approach to suit operation. She provides tactical instruction. He learns basic movement and response patterns while wearing enhanced armor. They practice coordinated operations where her combat experience guides his enhanced but inexperienced execution. The learning curve is steep. David's engineering background helps with understanding suit systems. But understanding systems differs profoundly from using them effectively during combat situations, requiring split-second decisions under extreme stress. But the neurological compatibility that allowed activation, that creates unexpected advantage during training. The suit responds to David's neural input with minimal delay. His stress responses and decision patterns, even though decisions themselves are inexperienced, those patterns create clean interface that experienced but incompatible wearers couldn't achieve. Your reflexes are improving faster than standard training progression predicts, Seraphina observes after a week of intensive work. The neurological compatibility, that's creating learning advantages. Suit responds to your input naturally. You don't fight the interface the way trainees typically do. That natural integration, that's accelerating capability development in ways that might make paired approach viable within available time frame. I'm still nowhere near combat effective independently, David cautions. The progress is real, but it's progress from complete inexperience toward basic competence. Actual combat proficiency, that remains distant goal. But paired approach doesn't require your independent combat proficiency, Seraphina responds. It requires you to execute tactical decisions I provide while wearing suit I can't activate. Your current capability, basic movement, reliable response to clear direction, growing familiarity with enhancement systems. That's sufficient for paired approach even though it's insufficient for independent operation. 2 weeks after initial activation, crisis escalates. Separatist forces launching major offensive. Thessari military needs to respond decisively. General Kethara makes difficult call. We're deploying Commander Suit using paired approach. Engineer Chen and Commander Seraphina, you'll operate as coordinated unit. Chen providing compatible interface, Seraphina providing tactical direction. It's unconventional. It's risky, but it's the best option available given strategic necessity and actual capabilities we have access to. The deployment occurs during critical defensive operation. Separatist forces attempting to overwhelm Thessari position in contested sector. Standard defensive capabilities proving insufficient against coordinated assault, employing new tactical approaches. Commander's Suit, with David as compatible wearer and Seraphina providing tactical command, is deployed as force multiplier that might allow successful defense despite numerical and positional disadvantage. David activates the suit under combat conditions for first time. The enhancement systems that he's experienced during training, those capabilities amplify enormously under actual combat stress. His sensory processing expands to track multiple threats simultaneously. His physical responses accelerate beyond normal human limitations. The tactical overlay that Seraphina provides directly through integrated command channel guides his movements with precision his inexperience alone couldn't achieve. Contact left 40 meters, Seraphina's voice comes through neural link. 3 separatist units advancing. Suppressive fire pattern delta. Execute. David responds. The suit translates his neural command into enhanced physical action. Weapon systems engaging with accuracy that combines his interface compatibility with Seraphina's tactical expertise about optimal firing patterns. The paired approach works. Not elegantly. The coordination creates delays that experienced solo operator wouldn't have, but effectively enough that commander's suit is providing tactical advantage that defensive operation desperately needs. The engagement lasts 3 hours. Sustained combat requiring constant communication between Seraphina's tactical direction and David's enhanced execution. Several moments where coordination delays create vulnerability, but also moments where the combination of his compatible interface and her combat experience produces outcomes that neither could achieve independently. The defense succeeds. Separatist offensive is repelled. Thessari position holds despite assault that conventional capabilities were failing to counter effectively. After operation concludes, David exits the suit physically exhausted in ways training hadn't prepared him for. 3 hours of enhanced combat operations. That's vastly more demanding than training exercises. His body is intact. Suit's protection prevented injury. But the sustained stress of combat while learning to use enhancement systems in real time, that's pushed him beyond normal endurance limits. Seraphina approaches. You performed well. The paired approach worked adequately for defensive operation where I could provide clear tactical direction, and you could execute those directions without requiring independent combat decision-making. The compatibility that allows you to wear suit, I can no longer activate. That compatibility created possibility for tactical success. Adequately, David repeats. That's accurate assessment, we succeeded. But the coordination complications, those created vulnerabilities that experienced solo operator wouldn't have. If separatist forces had recognized and exploited those vulnerabilities, outcome could have been different. But adequate success under difficult circumstances is still success, Seraphina responds. You're human engineer with 2 weeks of combat training wearing Thessari armor designed for experienced commander. The fact that paired approach worked at all, that's remarkable achievement beyond adequate performance. General Kethara debriefs both of them. The operation demonstrated that engineer Chen's compatibility can be leveraged tactically despite his inexperience. But it also demonstrated limitations of paired approach, coordination delays, communication requirements, operational constraints that solo commander Seraphina never faced. Those limitations, they're manageable during defensive operations where clear tactical direction is possible. They become more problematic during fluid offensive operations requiring rapid autonomous decisions. So paired approach has tactical value within specific operational constraints, Seraphina summarizes. Useful but not equivalent to independent combat capability that suit originally provided. Correct, Kethara confirms. Which means engineer Chen's activation of suit. That's valuable development, but it's not complete solution to tactical challenges requiring suit's full capabilities. We can deploy you both for appropriate operations, but we can't deploy commander's suit the way we deployed it when Seraphina wore it independently. Over following months, David and Seraphina conduct multiple operations using paired approach. Defensive positions, targeted tactical strikes, operations where clear command structure and defined objectives allow effective coordination despite communication overhead that pairing creates. The success rate is good. Not perfect. Several operations encounter serious complications from coordination delays, but successful enough that paired approach becomes recognized tactical capability rather than desperate expedient. But throughout sustained operations, question persists. Why does David's neurological compatibility exist? What creates match between human engineers' processing patterns and legendary Thessari commanders' combat cognition? Dr. Vethros investigates systematically. I've analyzed extensive data from your paired operations. The neurological compatibility isn't just general similarity. It's specific pattern matching across multiple cognitive dimensions, decision-making under pressure, stress-response regulation, priority assessment during complex situations. pattern recognition in tactical contexts. Those specific characteristics. You match Commander Seraphina's profiles across all of them, despite different backgrounds and different species. So we think similarly despite different experiences creating that thinking, David observes. That's what data indicates, Vethros confirms. Commander Seraphina developed her cognitive patterns through decades of military training and 8 years of combat operations. You developed yours through, what? Engineering work. Technical problem solving. The experiences differ enormously, but the resulting neurological patterns match closely enough for suit compatibility, which suggests cognitive patterns are partly inherent rather than purely learned, Seraphina reflects. I became tactical thinker through military development. Engineer Chen became tactical problem solver through engineering development. But underlying cognitive architecture, how we process information, manage stress, make decisions under pressure, that architecture was similar before different experiences shaped it toward different domains. If that theory is correct, David says, then compatibility isn't coincidence or luck. It's recognition of inherent cognitive similarity that exists independent of how that similarity was developed or applied. The suit isn't just matching my neurology to yours. It's recognizing that we're fundamentally similar thinkers who applied similar cognitive approaches to different challenges. 6 months after initial activation, situation develops requiring David to operate suit without Seraphina's direct tactical guidance. Separated during complex operation. Communication disrupted. David facing combat situation where paired approach isn't available and independent decision-making becomes necessary despite his continued relative inexperience. He responds using combination of training and instinct. The decisions aren't tactically optimal. Experienced combat operator would make better choices, but they're adequate for immediate survival and mission continuation. He navigates situation independently and accomplishes objective despite communication failure that made paired approach impossible. After operation, Seraphina addresses what independent operation demonstrated. 6 months ago, you activated suit successfully but couldn't use it independently. Today you operated solo during complex situation and succeeded despite communication failure preventing my tactical guidance. That progression, from compatible but inexperienced wearer to capable independent operator, that's significant achievement. I'm still not operating at level you achieved during 8 years with suit, David cautions. Today's success was adequate independent performance. It wasn't exceptional combat capability that made you legendary. Perhaps exceptional combat capability isn't what suit compatibility actually requires, Seraphina suggests. Perhaps compatibility is about cognitive patterns that enable learning and adaptation rather than about pre-existing combat expertise. You've demonstrated remarkable learning curve, 6 months from complete inexperience to adequate independent operation. That progression rate, that might be what compatibility actually enables rather than instant expert-level performance. 1 year after activating Commander's suit, David has developed genuine combat proficiency. Not matching Seraphina's legendary 8-year expertise, that level requires sustained experience he doesn't have. But competent independent operation, suitable for range of tactical situations that Alliance and Empire forces encounter. The paired approach that began as necessary accommodation of his inexperience has evolved into optional tactical enhancement. He can operate solo when situations require. He can coordinate with Seraphina when situations benefit from her superior combat experience, guiding his compatible interface. The flexibility is tactical advantage that fixed approach wouldn't provide. During strategic planning session, General Kethara addresses how David's activation transformed available capabilities. 1 year ago, legendary commander's suit was dormant equipment. 3 months of desperate testing failed to find compatible Thessari wearer. Then human engineer stepped forward, activated suit that everyone else failed to activate, created tactical capability that desperate situation required. The activation wasn't end of story, she continues. It was beginning of year-long development from compatible but inexperienced wearer to competent combat operator. Engineer Chen's current capability. That's result of sustained effort building on neurological compatibility that enabled initial activation. The compatibility mattered. But what he built from that compatibility, that's what created actual tactical value. Queen Seraphina, who's been following David's development, speaks during formal recognition ceremony. No one could activate Commander's suit after injury severed my connection to systems I'd worn for 8 years. Engineers failed, generals panicked, hope faded, then human stepped forward, not claiming he could succeed where everyone else failed, just suggesting that unconventional possibility was worth testing when conventional search produced no results. That willingness to test unconventional possibility, she continues, that's what created breakthrough everyone else missed. Human compatibility with Thessari combat armor that seemed implausible. But implausible isn't impossible. Engineer Chen's neurological patterns matched requirements that species physiology differences should have prevented. The match existed. We just needed someone willing to test whether implausible possibility might be actual reality. Beyond initial activation, Seraphina states, Engineer Chen spent years developing capability from compatible interface into combat proficiency, learning to use enhancement systems effectively, building skills that compatibility enabled but didn't automatically provide. That's sustained development. That's what transformed impossible activation into genuine tactical asset. During private conversation after ceremony, David reflects with Seraphina about what the year has meant. When I stepped forward to test activation, I was engineer curious about interface challenge. I wasn't imagining that successful activation would lead to combat deployment or year of learning to use legendary suit effectively. The progression from test volunteer to combat operator, that's trajectory I didn't anticipate when suggesting human compatibility was worth evaluating. But neurological compatibility suggested trajectory was possible, Seraphina responds. Suit recognized cognitive patterns in you that matched mine despite our different backgrounds. That recognition, that was identifying potential that activation could unlock if you were willing to develop it. You've spent years developing that potential, becoming operator who can use suit's capabilities in ways that serve strategic necessity. I'm using suit you wore for 8 years, David observes, wearing armor that was uniquely yours. That carries strange significance beyond just technical capability. I'm not replacing you. Paired approach demonstrates we work better together. But I am occupying role that was distinctly yours. That dynamic being compatible wearer of someone else's legendary equipment, that creates complicated relationship to both the suit and to you. The complication is real, Seraphina acknowledges. Suit was mine for 8 years. Injury severed connection I thought was permanent aspect of who I was as commander. Watching you wear suit successfully, initially that created pain about what I'd lost. But watching you develop capability over year, that's transformed pain into something more complicated. Pride that suit remains operationally valuable. Appreciation for how your compatible interface preserves capability injury would have eliminated. Recognition that sometimes loss creates opportunity for unexpected partnerships. Unexpected partnership, David repeats. That's accurate characterization. Your experienced commander who can't activate suit. I'm compatible wearer still learning combat proficiency. Together we create capability neither provides alone. The partnership, that's emerged from necessity, but it's become valuable beyond just accommodation of limitations. The partnership extends beyond tactical operations, Seraphina observes. Year of working together, coordinating during combat, training between operations, developing understanding of how each other thinks. That's created relationship beyond just professional cooperation. Neurological compatibility that Suit recognized. I think that compatibility manifests in how we collaborate generally rather than just in combat contexts. You're suggesting Suit recognize something about how we'd work together beyond just neural interface parameters, David says. I'm suggesting neurological compatibility isn't just technical specification, Seraphina responds. It's recognition of fundamental cognitive similarity that enables effective partnership. Suit activated for you not just because your brain waves match mine, but because how you think, how you approach problems, manage stress, make decisions. That cognitive approach aligns with mine in ways that create natural collaborative potential. Year of partnership has demonstrated what compatibility actually meant beyond just interface activation. 2 years after initial activation, David has fully integrated into role that began as desperate test of implausible possibility. He operates Commander's Suit with competence that earned respect from Thessari military, who initially questioned whether human could effectively use legendary Thessari combat armor. The question, why does human compatibility exist, has evolved from mysterious anomaly into recognized reality. David's neurological patterns match Seraphina's. That match enables Suit activation and creates foundation for effective partnership. The match exists because cognitive approaches that different backgrounds developed happen to align across species differences. During conversation marking 2-year anniversary, they reflect on trajectory neither anticipated. No one could activate legendary Suit, David recalls. 3 months of desperate testing. Then human engineer suggested unconventional possibility. Stepped forward to test whether implausible compatibility might exist. Discovered that neurological patterns transcend species differences when cognitive approaches align. That discovery, that transformed desperation into opportunity, Seraphina responds. Suit that seemed permanently dormant became operational capability. Human who was interface specialist became combat operator. Partnership emerged from necessity but proved valuable beyond just solving activation problem. 2 years later, Suit operational, partnership effective, possibility that seemed implausible proven real. The battlefield fell silent when legendary Suit refused to respond. Engineers failed, generals panicked, hope began to fade. Then a human stepped forward, not claiming certain success. Just suggesting unconventional possibility was worth testing. And neurological compatibility transcended what species differences should have prevented. Unexpected compatibility and destined connection. How some bonds transcend explanation.